Rarely does a game stress me out, like truly on the edge of my seat stress. Outer Wilds has achieved that on a few occasions when I'm nearing some vital piece of new information, the song finishes and I'm frantically trying to make it to wherever I need to be before suddenly. World of Warcraft has managed this, but that is more of a performance anxiety, where I'm trying not to let down a team while also putting out as much healing or DPS as I possibly can. It's a different kind of stress. Unsighted kept me stressed out the entire time, and is also the best game I've played this year. A game that can fully engross me the way Unsighted has is hard to come by. That sense of permanent stress and anxiety isn't one of hopelessness in the face of a dire situation sitting in front of the hero Alma. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about wanting to renew hope to as many people as possible before time runs out. The main hook of Unsighted is time. A quick elevator pitch is that it's a Metroidvania with old school Zelda-like dungeons and Hyperlight Drifter-esque combat, but it's so much more than those games. You play as an automaton, given consciousness in the wake of a new essence crash landing on your home planet called Anima. Every automaton relies on this new substance for their newfound life's clock, which is constantly ticking down. Once their time runs out, then they become unsighted and turn against the very people trying to save them. As it stands on its own, it's a fantastic game. If it didn't have the clock constantly counting down, I would still highly rate it and recommend it to some friends. The combat feels good with weight behind every hit, and mastering the parry timings on different enemies is satisfying. The level design is fantastic, rewarding multiple playthroughs with clever pathing and hidden secrets you might have missed, and of course, really fun boss fights. There's plenty to enjoy while you explore a broken world. But the thread of time leads to this interesting dichotomy I haven't seen before. In other games where time is against you, you can pick up the pieces where you left off and figure out how to do it better next time, or it even helps you unlock a piece of the puzzle. In Outer Wilds, if you're not scurrying for a clue when the song kicks in, you know time is coming to an end, so you can take a moment for reflection. You can sit and watch the universe explode before going around for another loop. Unsighted instead gives the player consequences for taking too long. Everything will use up your precious resource of time. Die in your adventure, you'll lose time. Not only on the clock, but getting back to where you were. Taking too long to figure out a puzzle? Well, you better hurry up, because the longer you take, the more people will die waiting for you. So many games offer up choices for players. Do you save Kaiden or Ashley on Vermeer? Do you join the Stormcloaks or Imperial Guards in Skyrim? Do you stay on the radio with Delilah during the Dune fire? Or do you just hang up and go to bed? Some of these choices are more meaningful than others, but they do have some lasting impact on the story and sometimes gameplay overall, but what's missing is the consequence they have on your moment-to-moment gameplay. Text-based games have excelled at this for years, and tabletop RPGs for even longer before them, but to see this idea realized in an action game is refreshing to say the least. The time mechanic has been somewhat contentious since release, despite being able to turn it off if you wish, but it adds a layer of complexity I can only describe as stressful yet satisfying. As you explore, you'll find meteor dust, and each one that you find can be used on you or another character for an extra 24 hours of in-game time to live, and by doing so, you will be rewarded in kind with new weapons or items to help you make your way to the end. Problem is, dust isn't so easily attainable. It will be hidden behind tough enemies or puzzles you may not have the right items to solve, so you may need to take notes of locations or else you will forget or get lost trying to find it again, costing even more time. It's a tightly wound road of constant decision making, where a moment of indecision could be costly. It could wind up ultimately costing your entire save file. This isn't a Hellblade situation where it's sold on the threat of permanent death, as rot creeps ever closer up Senua's arm, but never actually gets there. No, if you mess up and run out of time, your save file bricks and you need to start again. I know that pitch makes it sound brutal and relentlessly hard, and it is a difficult game, but it's not a punishing one. It is more just built on this idea that you need to make choices, and so in order for those choices to matter, there needs to be consequences. If you can't find meteor dust and are in desperate need of more time, you can just sacrifice someone you've met on your journey thus far to help your overall quest to save the world. Your first playthrough of Unsighted will likely be grim. You will lose people in the pursuit of saving the world, and that's what makes it so stressful. You can keep giving more time to people running low, but eventually you will hit a point where more and more people will need the dust you're gaining, but at a much higher rate than can be given to everyone. Eventually, someone will die. And it sucks, it feels awful, but therein lies the hope. The chance to start a new save file with the mastery of its mechanics and maybe some found knowledge on how to break it wide open. You see, outside of its unique use of time, Unsighted has a very heavy focus on getting good and overcoming the game itself. It wants you to break it. This really plays into the idea of it being about hope and adversity, both thematically and mechanically. As you explore the ruins of a world that once was, you can find fun ways to sequence break your way through it, and for the most part, this was incredibly intentional design. Going back around for a second time to do it faster and to save everyone, and with the knowledge of fighting, puzzles, and tricks to slip through the cracks of the game, makes that journey much easier and gives more hope to players who watched it fade away. You may have noticed I'm not showing any of it here. I want those who haven't played this game yet to figure out this stuff for themselves. It's a lot more fun that way. Metroidvanias have been a hot category of speedrunning games for a long time now. The idea of quickly completing games designed to leave you directionless is satisfying both for the runner and spectator alike. It's that accomplishment of overcoming something that once upon a time gave you trouble, or the gratification of seeing someone else do it. Unsighted taps into this idea. The time mechanic, coupled with the fact it has an actual in-game speedrun timer built into it, makes it the perfect experience to master and get faster and faster at. The fact that sequence breaking is an intended design, it becomes compulsive to just pick it back up again and see where you can try to bust the game wide open in your own way. In the 30 hours I've put into this 9-hour game, I have found and been told about so many tricks I never thought possible, and it's an obsession I can see myself coming back to over and over again. You see, I have a peripheral history with speedrunning. I did some grinding on the first level of Ghost Runner until my hand clawed up. I got a little bit into Super Mario 64 16 star, but replaying those games over and over again in order to master incredibly hard tricks was just not the way I wanted to be spending my time. But Unsighted is something I can see myself practicing for a long, long time to come. As I said, deep down, Unsighted is a game about overcoming adversity, whether that's finding your own path through sequence breaking, or the story of two automatons trying to make their love work in a world that doesn't want them to have it. It's analogous to being queer and especially trans in today's world. Despite the hopeless situation everything is in, there is hope, and this game shows you that it does exist. Games centered around queer characters are sort of a mixed bag. If it's not queer baiting, they are unfortunately obsessed with tragedy and burying the gays, sometimes both. Life is Strange and its prequel Before the Storm are guilty of this idea that in order to make a character likable, especially one that is part of the LGBTQ+ community, they have to succumb to tragedy. Queer characters are seen as more expendable than the heterosexual ones. Even though the AAA space has been taking strides to be more inclusive, it still falls victim to this trope. The Last of Us 2 is one such that falls to this idea. While it takes one step forward, it also takes the same back.
Creative ideas of inclusion and diversity are often the fact that they offered up a queer character at all. They don't put much thought going forward into what the character is about outside of her sexuality. It's frustrating to watch the same kind of stories, coming out stories, love stories, end in death, because writers aren't fully able to flesh out LGBTQ characters like they can heterosexual ones.
The idea that maybe things will be grim on your first playthrough comes into action here. You can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean it's hopeless. Just that next time, if you go in with a better understanding of what's to come, you can overcome that adversity if you try to get better. And that's something Unsighted excels at, and well, that may come down to the obvious fact it's made by two trans women, but it shouldn't be praised and learned from any less so. Games and art as a whole are reflections of the people who make it, and we should pay attention when stories like this come up. Every so often, I'll play a game that fundamentally changes the way I look at a genre of games or even the entire medium in general. Majora's Mask taught me games could have emotional depth at a time when I was growing into a preteen who had too many bottled up feelings. Dark Souls showed me games could have mechanical depth and a natural difficulty curve during a moment in games when everything felt the same. To the Moon was an experience that not every game needs to be a big blockbuster title to be impactful. This video was about how Unsighted showed me that mechanics and theming can work together to truly pull at your heartstrings in a way I didn't know was possible, and that even in the most hopeless of times, there's always hope.